I would like to start first with a podcaster from Beloit. Please, a warm welcome for Mr. Reese Wood.
Thank you. All right, I'm gonna script this. It's a little different, but all right. So 5 years ago, I got involved with the Libertarian Party by doing door hangers for Gary Johnson. That was my idea of getting more involved. And at that point, I had been pretty much convinced that war was the one issue that most of our presidential candidates, our Senate candidates, all the candidates were really able to avoid. And it was also the one issue I think a lot of people wanted to talk about and have a public discussion about. But our libertarian candidates, they were the ones that wanted to talk about that. And at that time, I believe Joe Kexel was running for Senate in Wisconsin. And for me, guys like Joe Kexel got me interested even more in the Libertarian Party by just giving us an option on the ballot. And in 2015, I decided to do my part and kind of try to give back to my community by doing the Beloit podcast, which was focusing on the Beloit community, its people, places, past, present, and future. And that allowed me to interview individuals from the community, business owners, people who had a story to share that they likely weren't able to share in the mainstream media or elsewhere. And that actually turned into another opportunity that brought me to Janesville Community Radio, the hometown of Paul Ryan. Do we have any fans here? All right. So I was on community radio 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9, the morning drive, which was pretty much a childhood dream of mine, and it was a great experience. But I brought Phil on. I had the chance to bring Phil on for some interviews, which provoked a response from Ron Johnson, and also later I got Russ Feingold. But the difference between the candidates seems how I had a unique window into that Senate race. I think there was not only a noticeable difference to libertarians, but let's talk about what I thought was the unique difference. I believe I followed up with Phil, got him on the morning show, probably one of my first weeks on the show, and Ron very shortly afterwards. I might have even got a response from Ron first. In terms of representing themselves, that's what I wanted to focus on. Phil, Ron, and Russ, and how they represented themselves in their interviews. Ron, he was happy to come back 8 times. Every interview had to be scripted. I got to speak between his assistant. Russ, the same thing. His assistant handled everything scripted. Phil, a little different. Phil didn't have an assistant controlling all of his speeches on radio and broadcast opportunities. Phil's one candidate that seemed like a real person when I talked to him. He wasn't afraid to talk about the topics that libertarians want to talk about: life, liberty, property. And the unique opportunity that I did get with Ron Johnson to ask him any off-the-script questions was asking him about his opinion on third-party inclusion. And he was a fan, he was in favor of it. But when asked about his third-party opponent, that's where the conversation usually ended. And I believe I lost Ron Johnson and my opportunities to interview him when I asked him to do a debate with Phil and Russ, a third-party inclusive debate, and never heard back from Ron after that, or Russ. Surprising. But also, I think Phil was the guy in that election that kept me interested, like Joe had in the previous election. Joe gave us candidates on the ballot that we could vote for when there was no one else. And that's something I'm going to be doing for the 45th District. I'm going to give them the option to vote for something different. Seems how the last two elections we've had a unopposed candidate, Democrat twice elected. Living in that district, I don't feel represented, and I think the 400 plus interviews I've done in the last 2 years, a lot of those people have also felt underrepresented. So I'm going to offer that option to the people of the 45th District of Wisconsin. That's Broadhead, Judah, Orfordville, Albany, Evansville, Beloit. That's part of Greene and Rock County. And I told you guys I was doing this scripted. Not a professional here, but thanks for bearing with me. A little bit more about myself. I'm a 31-year-old father. I consider myself working class. And I can tell you I'm not here because I can afford to be here. I'm here because I can't afford to not be here, and I think a lot of other people who are underrepresented also cannot afford to be here. And those people deserve representation. All kinds of people of diverse ages, races, ethnicities. I think a lot of people are going unrepresented, especially in the 45th. And what do I care about? I care about debt. I care about all the spending going on, the cost. Not only the financial cost, but the social costs that we never really get a chance to discuss or quantify. Debt racks up with all the things that we'd like to see happen, and we'd all like to see positive change, but when it's in the name of racking up more debt, it does have a later social cost. We don't have discussions about that very often. I think that has to do with representation. I won't put you guys to sleep. I'm going to let you go to the next speaker here, but I'm really proud to be up here among some other young faces, and I'm enthused to see where this election year will take us. Thanks to everybody for coming out.